All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all feeling? Ooh, lots of noise. Lots of noise. Hold on. Hold on. I don't know. Anyways, we're here. Greetings. Welcome. Okay. Noise seems to have abated. It's in and out. How y'all doing? Thanks for joining me today and every day on these interwebs. What's going on? What's going on with Jets? Let's see. Sorry, just looking through the comments. We're live on Callin. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Rockfin. Good to see you all here. Letting you know this is going to be an abbreviated show today. I apologize, but I have somewhere to be this afternoon and kind of earlier. There's conflict. Oh, are you talking about conflict along the Russian border? Yeah, I don't know. There's so much going on in Ukraine, so much news coming out of Ukraine. I find myself sometimes tuning into it and sometimes tuning out. But I know, obviously it's a very serious situation. And it's hard also for me to cover on YouTube because I don't know what the parameters are. Oh, thank you for the clarification. Judy says the jets that Biden says can be given to Ukraine now, even though he previously said this would be World War III. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could go on, right? I could go on. All right, we're going to get into this right away because, as I said, this is going to be an abbreviated show today. So this is going to be a romp through the headlines or the stories that I want to share with you today. Peter Dine says to cope with the increased heat waves throughout the world, 10 aircon units are being sold or bought every second. This is set to continue up to 2050, completely unsustainable. It's an interesting time, isn't it, to be alive? It's an interesting thing. There's also that too, Poppy. It's hard for me to trust anything I read about Ukraine from anyone. That is also a good point, Poppy. It's hard for me to know exactly what is going on there, though. Anyways, I'm not going to go deep into it. There seems to be a battle, psychological battle out there about whether, for the minds of people on whether climate change even exists or whether it's even a thing or or whether we should be really super concerned about it, or whether it's taking us over a cliff in the near future, right? Ew. Ew. And I mean, I think we all know here what's happening, but the confusion is unfortunate. Yeah. The confusion around it is unfortunate. All right, give me 1 second. Call in, people. I'm going to mute you for a moment. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, well. Yeah. All right, calling people, we are back. But we're obviously we're obviously doing more of the wrong things if we are going to care about the future life on the planet Earth. It's obvious what we're doing to the planet. But there are a lot of people out there that are really, really just super convinced that climate change is a hoax, that it doesn't mean anything. And this is an unfortunate scenario, right? Because there's going to be a lot of people caught off guard, and I keep on hearing people say, "Well, where is it?" They keep on saying we only have 10 years left, or we only have. I hear things being misquoted. I hear the science being misinterpreted. They keep on saying that we only have a couple years left. Well, I mean, where is it at? Are you paying attention? There's increased heat waves throughout the world every single year. We keep on breaking heat records every single year, and yet people are just like, nope. I don't know what you're talking about. And so when it actually does present itself as something incredibly obvious, it's going to be unfortunate for all the people that were like, they were intentionally misguided and misled and confused about this. But be not confused. There is a war on for people, for people's thoughts and minds. And unfortunately, the war around climate change is on the wrong. If you think that Extinction Rebellion is confused and duped, and that there's no climate change, that is all just one big hoax, because you can't actually understand that the fossil fuel companies are pretty much the biggest conglomerate of, the biggest business on the planet is fossil fuels. The biggest business on the planet is fossil fuels, period, bar none. We wage wars over this product. It's energy, energy, energy. We are not waging wars over solar panels. We are not waging wars over wind turbines. We are waging wars over energy, fossil fuels. It's the biggest thing going on the planet. And they want people confused about what they're doing to the planet for as long as possible so they can keep selling you all the stuff. When they stop being able to sell you all the stuff, that's when they're done. And you, intrepid truth teller, are playing right into their schemes, if not a direct, beneficiary of their payments. It's just absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid to me that people can't understand this. That you can understand that Big Pharma has taken over the airwaves and is trying to confuse you about, what's real and what's not real. But fossil fuel, big oil is not doing that to you. Okay. Anyways, this is RFK Jr. on Bill Gates and China buying up our farmland. I get it. Bill Gates is not a good guy, and he is pushing climate change, so it makes people think immediately that climate change is fake because Bill Gates is pushing it. That's not the story. You are confused. Bill Gates is pushing it because it's convenient for him. Just because he's pushing it doesn't mean it's false. That's not a correct thing to think. It's absolutely true. It's worse than anybody's going to let you know about it. It's worse than Bill Gates is going to let you know. Bill Gates is not going to let you know how bad climate change really is. He just wants to use it as a tool. Anything at his disposal that he can use to confuse you or get you to spend money or to push his particular narratives or his business interests. That's what he's going to do. Obsolete Optics says the term is logical fallacy. Exactly. Exactly. They have got you convinced that if the wrong people are talking about it, it means it's false. Well, no, that doesn't, does not compute. Or that climate change and COVID are the same topics, so you can just equate both of them together as the same thing. Well, it's, these people are pushing the thing, so that means it's totally fake. No, that's not what it means. They are totally two different subjects, and until you understand that nuance, you're going to be confused. And there are people out there willing to confuse you all day long for their benefit and to your detriment. Anyways, here's RFK Jr.
Hey everybody, here I am in Sherwood, Connecticut, on Sherwood Island. There's a little woodchuck hole. Shirley Troubadour asked a question about why Gates and China are being allowed to buy up all the farmland in our country. And I'm going to tell you something that I had an experience with. I spent many years, about 20 years, suing the factory farms, the big hog farms, and the big chicken producers like Tyson and Bo Pilgrim and Purdue, Frank Purdue. But Smithfield Foods was the biggest pork producer, and Smithfield came in the state of North Carolina, and they built a slaughterhouse that could process 30,000 pigs a day. And then they had a partner named Wendell Murphy, who was in the state senate, and he passed 28 laws in the North Carolina State Senate making it illegal to sue a factory farm. And they dropped, he left, went into partnership with Smithfield, created a way to raise pigs that would instead of raising them on farms, to raise them in warehouses called Murphy 1100s. And they dropped the price of pork from 60 cents a pound to 2 cents a pound. They put out of business all 28,000 independent hog farmers in the state of North Carolina, and it replaced them with 2,200 factories, all of them either owned by Smithfield or contracted to Smithfield. The only farmers who could stay in business were farmers who signed that contract with Smithfield to mortgage their homes, to put those big hog sheds, the Murphy 1100s, on their property, and then they lose all control. They become serfs on their own land. Smithfield dictates all their farming practices. It gives them the food. It delivers the piglets, picks up the grown animals, and brings them to slaughter. And none of the decisions made on that farm are made by that family farmer anymore. He's no longer a family farmer. He's a serf working on his own farm. They put out of business 28,000 farmers, and they control now 80% of the hog production in North Carolina. Because they dropped the price in North Carolina, Iowa had to adopt the same system, had to cave into Smithfield. They ended up taking control of 80% of the hog production in our country. Then they sold themselves to China. So now China owns all that hog production in America, and it controls our landscapes. And that's the end of Thomas Jefferson's vision of an American democracy rooted in tens of thousands of independent freeholds, each one owned by family farmers, each with a stake in our system of government. And that's why all of this industrial agriculture not only gives us substandard food, and is food that is not nutritious, that is filled with chemicals and hormones and antibiotics, but they're also taking control of our landscapes, and that is a huge threat to American democracy. I hope you guys have a good day.
He ends by saying, "I hope you guys have a good day." We're completely, uh, all of our farmers are completely beholden to China and Bill Gates. I hope you have a good day. Yeah. But he's saying the right thing, right? He's saying, what we need is a lot of small independent farmers growing organic food and having control over how they grow food, etc. And what we've ended up with is people who have been economically forced into a system where they have to do factory farming or do farming according to somebody else's methods, farming that is harmful to the environment and harmful to the people that eat the products of this farming, right? And and it's why I don't necessarily agree with the Dutch vision of trying to close down a bunch of small. What's the purpose of closing down all the smaller Dutch independent farmers? Is it to recreate the same farms but with industrial style agriculture, or with large corporations running it with no oversight? That's what a lot of people are worried about. And this is, we're going to just talk quickly about, I have a problem with people saying, well, we got to do something about this climate change. It's really bad. Well, what? What are we going to do? I mean, there are actually just very simple, pragmatic things that, people should be talking about, solutions that people should be talking about, which is, having people growing their own food, small farming, small, community-based co-ops, getting people off of the industrial civilization teat, right? People should be able to, and the government would have to be involved in this as well. Like the government would be, if we were really serious about tackling climate change, what we would do is kind of starting to disentangle industrial civilization as we know it, right? So you would, if you were going to have a Marshall Plan or some kind of like large scale plan, you'd start by making sure that everybody has enough to eat and that everybody has a house, right? And then you would, bring the armies home from all the bases around the world, and you would, enlist them to, spread out through the nation and be helpers and not, armed forces, but, go out and help people, make sure that people have food, water, clothing, shelter, make sure that everybody's, start getting everybody to grow their own food, I don't know. Things like this. That's what I would do. But even RFK Jr., probably knows and understands you can't talk about degrowing the economy, but that's literally what it would take. Degrowing the economy, allowing for the economy to go down and not up, allowing for profits to go down and not up, doing things because they're good for the planet and good for people, not because they involve making money. Anyways, what if you could grow fresh food where it is most needed, cost effectively, reduce heat-related deaths, and create green space for the local community? What if you could also reduce flooding and help mitigate climate change? Flood forests. I'm just going to read the headline here. Food forests and urban farms hold promise of addressing numerous problems at once. Right. Numerous problems involved in overshoot and climate change. And overconsumption, right? What if you can grow fresh food where it is most needed, cost effectively reduce heat-related deaths, create green spaces for local community? What if you could also reduce flooding and help mitigate climate change? Well, sounds awesome. Sounds like the best solution to climate change ever, right? Because it solves all kinds of problems. Problem is, what you're doing is allowing people to be independent, allowing people to grow their own food, allowing people not to be slaves and subjects, to, not having them be forced to get in their car and drive to the store to go get their food from places, people in places that they have never seen in their life. That would be bad for the people in charge. These questions and more at the heart of the report on the many possibilities of urban agriculture that the Stanford-based Natural Capital Project is presenting this week to San Antonio City Council's subcommittee. The report considered two forms of urban agriculture: food forests and urban farms. Food forests are a system of perennial crops, blah, blah, blah. We already know this. Okay. The report estimates that the amount of food that can be produced by urban farms and food forests, as well as some of their additional benefits: urban cooling, carbon storage, flood retention, and green space. Well, what if you took the cars out at the same time? What if you greatly reduce the traffic by only allowing people to drive on certain days, or, allowing a certain amount of cars on the road, allowing people to own a certain amount of cars? What if you started taking out lanes of the highway instead of adding lanes to the highway? What if you started taking out highways and growing food where the highways used to be? Well, that sounds crazy. What's going to happen? What would we do? I don't know. You probably live very locally, and you'd grow your own food and be independent, and people would probably be a lot happier. But yeah, right? Carbon sequestration, all these things, cooling. You would get rid of, if people were growing food where they lived, and at the same time, maybe you were taking out some of the infrastructure that causes urban heat island effect. What? Maybe, right? You would reduce the temperature over land, that reduces land temperature, because you would be recreating like green. You know what I'm saying? Walter Jane. Restarting the hydrological cycle, right? Anyways, there's more people talking about this. Steve Austin also providing something of the same message. Right, we cannot afford to waste both time and money on techno fixes that are ineffective at achieving our climate goals. The clear path forward to addressing the looming catastrophic effects of climate change is to restore nature. How do you restore nature? Stop messing it up. Stop allowing humans to do whatever they want, because freedom. Sorry. Sometimes freedom isn't actually freedom. The freedom to destroy the habitat around you, or the freedom to do whatever you want anytime you want to do it, is sometimes not really all that, it's not all that free. And maybe humans need some kind of constraint. What was it? Was it I think I heard Ryan Christian. Look, I like Ryan Christian. I like his work. But he was reading something from Deep Green Resistance yesterday, which I thought very interesting. But talking about something from the Deep Green Resistance, Derek Jensen and all that, about implementing a plan to, and I think they were putting it forward as maybe possibly a good thing, but implementing a plan to take down the economies of for what we know as first world nations, or Western nations, Western economies, in order to stop destroying the planet. And some people think that's a great idea, and other people are like, that's crazy. I guess it depends on your standpoint. I guess it depends on how much you understand of what's actually going on. I guess it depends on how capable you are of thinking things through logically about where humans are at, what they're doing to the planet, what the possible paths forward are. Bill Carter says all of nature is owned. Exactly. Ecosystem services, we own it. That land that you want to go use over there, we own it. You can buy it. Oh, nobody's using it? It doesn't really matter. Capturing carbon with machines is a failure, so why are we subsidizing it? Again, I have to take off soon, guys, so I'm gonna be brief about this, and I apologize for the short show today. Human activity, mostly from the burning of fossil fuels, blah blah blah, has raised Earth's temperature, carbon content by 50%. Yes, we know this. Climate scientists warn that if we want to avert catastrophe, a significant amount of excess atmosphere CO2 must be captured and sequestered. Well, how do you do it? You're going to have a lot of machines, and we're going to have to bring in we're going to have to burn a bunch of fossil fuels in order to drive all the stuff and ship all the stuff over here and build a machine so we can capture and then sequester it and put it underground. We'll build a big machine to do that too. Hey, we are smart. There are two broad strategies, biological and mechanical. How should we go about doing it? How should we go about sequestering carbon? Biological and mechanical are the two broad strategies. Nature already absorbs and emits about 100 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide every year through the natural process in the biosphere, including plant growth, and amount 2.5 times humanity's annual carbon output. So according to advocates for biological carbon removal, our best bet is simply to help the planet do a little more of what it is already doing to absorb carbon. We could accomplish this through reforestation, soil building, agricultural practices, and encouraging kelp growth in oceans. I can tell you another thing we can do that they're not talking about here. Stop doing all the stuff we're doing. Oh, that was one of the things, I guess, that I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to find the article that Ryan Christian was referring to. But what, dang it, what was I just thinking about? But I think he talked a little bit about this too. But, he was talking about, that's what it is. He was talking about the link between the COVID lockdowns and the idea that, there's some kind of like secretive elite group that understands that climate change is a real thing, and people are never going to do the right thing about it. So that what they're going to do is try and lock people down and curb economic activity. Unfortunately, this is all kind of the right thing, right? So if we don't allow humans to do all the things that they do, I don't suggest that locking people down, through means of coercion is probably the best thing. You could probably get people to do the right thing if you actually explain to them what the problem is. You could probably get people to do the right thing if you actually said, look, we have a really big problem. This is kind of what we have to do. I know this sounds a little nutty, but can we all get together and agree on the best way to do this? Like, you would have so much more success than trying to do like a covert plan. Like, hey, if we release like a biological time bomb out there, or a biological weapon, or something we call a biological weapon, or something we call, weaponize something, release it as a reason to lock people. You don't have to do all that stuff. I think what he was suggesting is that, COVID was cooked up to lock people down in order to further, what really is at its base a climate change agenda of trying to address the problems on the planet Earth, because people will never do the right thing if you know, blah blah blah. Right? Okay, fine. I mean, hey, I'm willing to go walk down that road as a theory. I don't necessarily think it's. I don't think it's the best way to do it. I think it's a really dumb way to do it, because what have you got in response to that? What have you got in return for that idea? I know I'm jumping around here a lot, guys, but what you've got, if that really is truly the plan, if somehow this is all, locking people down because of COVID, or kicking farmers off their land because of nitrogen, or doing all these things that supposedly they're doing for the long term climate change viewpoint. What it gets you in response is people distrusting anything that you have to put forward to people, right? Anything the elites have to put forward as a plan of action or as a solution. You have people just going like, nope, don't want to do it. And I don't trust you and I don't like you. And then you have people really being more skeptical than ever about climate change, right? Because they're skeptical about everything now that the elites want to tell you that they're trying to do to you. You see the problems with this. You see the problem in trying to enact something in that manner. But maybe that is really what's happening. I don't know. But it's an interesting concept nonetheless. But that doesn't mean that the problem isn't real, the problem isn't there, and that the solution is, in the end, I mean, they're saying the way to regrow nature is, restart nature or let nature do its thing. Reforestation, soil building, agricultural practices, encouraging kelp growth. I'll tell you what would really help nature is if we stop fishing all the fish out of the ocean. If we stop plundering the ocean, if we stopped, running oil tankers and tankers full of, cargo boxes all over the ocean. I bet that would help restart the ocean. How about mitigating human activity as a thing that could help nature do its thing? It's, I mean, I know they're trying to be all nice and PC about it. We can't really talk about how humans are really just, a demented, destructive force on the planet. We can't talk about that. Well, we can talk about, we're going to reforest. Well, what are you going to reforest? How are you going to reforest? We need so much stuff. How are we going to reforest? Soil building, agriculture practice, great. But how are we going to do all that when we need more and more and more stuff? Kelp growth in the ocean. You see what I'm saying? I mean, these are all great ideas, and I'm happy that somebody's putting this forward. We do need to do stuff like this, but we also need probably eventually less of us doing it, right? Less of us doing all the things all the time. Expanding and expanding and expanding the footprint of humans and what they need, what's required for them to survive. Like ever expanding maw of human civilization. We could probably, why can't we have that conversation? Why can't we have that conversation and it's not how are you going to kill first? I don't see you lining up to commit suicide if you think humans are so bad. That is just the dumbest conversation. It is truly an ignorant point of view. Who are you going to kill first? No. Dingus. If it's a problem for all of us to be consuming so much, can we talk about, maybe we should just kind of slow down a little bit. Maybe we could slow down on the procreation a little bit. Maybe we could slow down on the capitalist growth paradigm a little bit. Maybe we could slow down on we need more of everything a little bit. Just slow down. Slow it down. We could do that. We could have conversations about the best way to do that doesn't involve hurting people or tricking people, right? Or, if really there is some kind of secret elite plan out there to do something about climate change, but the masses are too stupid, so we're going to have to force it on them. That's a dumb plan too. How are we going to do it without doing dumb stuff like that? I've even heard people suggest that, COVID and the vaccines are some kind of look. I'm not. Hey, YouTube. I'm just talking about this. I'm not saying that I believe this. There's people talking about, the idea that these things are kind of like a way to, to get people off the planet. Okay, but there's actually better ways to do it if you allow people to have a conversation about it. If you allow people into the room where people are making decisions like this, if you allow people if you allow the conversation to be had at all. That's why I also think it's a little bit ridiculous that people think that this is a problem, because the conversation can't even be had at all. On the right, you can't have a conversation about overpopulation because you're a crazy Malthusian eugenicist, WEF-sponsored lunatic. If you're talking about overpopulation on the right, if you're talking about it on the left, you're a racist. You want to subjugate people of color all over the world, and you're just, right? You can't even have it on either side of the aisle. You cannot have the conversation. That's by design. I think that's by design. They don't really want you having that conversation. They don't really want anybody having like a logical, thought out, hey, maybe we shouldn't have, maybe we shouldn't have this many people consuming this many things on the planet, leading to our ultimate demise and destruction. Maybe we shouldn't do that. How does that sound that crazy and far-fetched of a conversation? Hey, if we keep doing this, maybe we'll just, we'll crash and burn, and then we'll see a lot of death and destruction, because that will be really ugly. That's something I don't want to see, and I don't think a lot of other people want to see. So how do we avoid hitting that wall, hitting the proverbial wall? Going forward, foot on the gas pedal until we hit the wall. How do we avoid doing that? Can we have that conversation? We can't? No? Nobody can talk about it? Really? Okay. I find that juvenile. I find it incredibly juvenile, and, it's a little bit, and reactionary, right? It's just, what are you talking about? Really? You can't entertain the idea? You can't just entertain an idea? People with the big brains who are always entertaining ideas, you can't entertain that idea? You can't just have a conversation about it? Okay. Anyways, I don't know, but I digress. Anyways, other people are advocating for mechanical carbon removal, exploring chemical pathways for direct air capture, sequester CO2. But which pathway holds more promise? Well, it's interesting. In this comparative study, the scores for natural versus mechanical carbon removal methods were not close. Natural methods won in every category, and it's by a significant margin. Really? Well, no duh. No duh. Are we still alive on YouTube? Well, there you go. Nature won. Hands down. Anyways, I didn't really think I was going to go off on a rant about Contemplative Prague says if we continue all this warmongering and military spending and consumption, the majority of us won't be around too much longer. Anyways. Okay, cool. You guys are all here. Yep. You know what, guys? That I have run out of time today. I need to take off. And I apologize for ending the show early, but I will be back tomorrow at the regular time. And I'll do a usual time show of an hour. But quickly before I go, great ways to support the show. Venmo at Kevin Sandbloom. Cash App, Red Llama Music. BuyMeACoffee.com at Black Bear News. Also, Super Chats, Super Rays. You can follow me on Twitter, Black Bear News 1. And also Patreon at Black Bear News. You can support me there. All right, guys, that does it for me. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I will see you all tomorrow. Until next time, peace.